After keeping you guys waiting since watching the cinematic platformers genre video and doing some reviews on this month on cinematic platformers, I'm here to finally give you guys my top 10 cinematic platformers. And for those who are watching my video for the first time, cinematic platformers are 2D platformers with rich, artistic, lifelike gameplay that doesn't destroy the laws of physics like Mario and Sonic. These games are highly interactive, and some have a great deal of trial and error, tons of puzzles, and take realism into its own hands. Before watching the rest of this video, watch my video of video game genres on cinematic platformers to understand what this subgenre is actually before complaining where's Mario and Sonic. And most of all, to everybody else, this is my list, not yours. If there's something that bothers you in this list, don't bitch about it. Deal with it. Make your own. This one's mine. With that out of the way, let's show appreciation to this underrated subgenre. Starting at number 10, Its Prince of Persia. Back where it all started. It's one of the first 2D platformers that doesn't defy the laws of physics like all the others in the mainstream and decide to take interactive and realism in its own hands. This definitely is a true classic to the genre, and it's definitely the roots from where the rest of these games came from. I know that some of you guys were expecting that this game to be higher in this list because basically the game made a major influence to the subgenre, but my major complaint is that many of the levels are too similar to each other that going to an underground prison feels kinda tiresome and depressing at a certain point. I heavily dislike being in time, which ruins the cinematic experience, which makes me rush and die in a lot of traps and obstacles. The only time it feels like a breath of fresh air in this game, after a long time of playing it, is when you finally reach to the palace and face the final boss in order to save the princess. I know that Prince of Persia 2, you're not underground, but rather adventure outdoors, but it wasn't as good as the original Prince of Persia, so that's the reason why it's number 10. Coming up next at number 9, it's Heart of the Alien. For those who don't know, this is a sequel to Another World, or Out of This World, where it continues on what was left out from the ending of Out of This World. Here, you don't play as Lester Knight Chaykin, like in the original, but rather you play as his alien friend named Buddy, who was always there to help Lester in the first game, and now is sent to rescue him and send him back home. And I just want to say that I love Buddy from Out of This World, and to finally play this big guy feels like a necessary move. His adventure really goes in depth with the universe and sees the stuff that we never seen in the first game. Yeah, there are so many familiar level designs that feel so nostalgic as if you played the first one, and it's surprising that they managed to do it without having Eric Chahi to be part of developing this game, because he was still working on Heart of Darkness at the time when this game was made. I'm glad that this game for the Sega CD came with Out of This World, which is a really great compilation deal like the Orange Box or Super Mario All-Stars. But let me give you the reason why this game alone is so low in this list. Playing as Buddy has a lot of pros and cons, but it did affect the gameplay that made playing as Lester in the first game feel like it was done better. And let me get to the spoilers here, so please skip to number 8. Okay, the ending was the biggest piece of shit in the face ever. I mean, they fucking killed Lester. Yeah, they did. That character was so great, they just kill him off. And even worse, they acted like everything was going great and nothing bad happened. I never felt so depressed over a horrible game ending. I wish that Eric Chahi was on the sequel to make sure that this abomination would not happen. But guess what? It did. And the anticlimactic ending was utter shit for everyone who loved Out of This World. Son of a bitch, moving on. At number 8, it's Nosferatu. The best way to describe this game is that it's Prince of Persia meets Castlevania. It has a really creepy atmosphere, and I wish I talked about this on my survival horror videos because it was indeed chilling to play. It was incredibly action-packed and at the same time interactive and puzzling. The enemies to fight in this game are all classic horror monsters like Frankenstein, werewolves, and so much more that are indeed challenging, and to top it all down are the epic boss fights. I'm surprised that this Super Nintendo game isn't familiar to the public, and I wish that it was because in my opinion, this game is actually better than Super Castlevania 4. My only problem with Nosferatu as a cinematic platformer is because it isn't cinematic enough. I mean, punching your enemies just feels like a beat 'em up, and the controls are not quite as good as the other cinematic platformers in this list. But anyway, this game really deserves some more attention, and it was such an awesome game. At number 7, Flashback. A lot of people like to compare this game to Another World. As you can see, it was developed by the same company, Delphine Software, but not by the same developer who made Another World. This game was definitely quite the adventure, and to see our main character Conrad B. Hart, travel through the cyberpunk world really reminds me of Blade Runner. Flashback has a strong narrative story, it has really good text dialogue to make the story even better, and some of the toughest enemies to kill. A lot of people had a hard time trying to beat this game, but the challenge in this game is a blast. As you progress in the game, you learn more about yourself, your mission, and the world you're in. This game is really nice to look at. Flashback is one classic that you cannot miss. Coming at number 6, Black Thorn. It's surprising that this game was made by Blizzard, and it's without a doubt the most badass cinematic platformer I have ever played. The designs in this game feels like a heavy metal album artwork, and if you're looking for action in this subgenre, there is without a doubt plenty of kick-ass action in this game. You play as Kyle, and you're trying to overthrow Sarlacc and bring back your kingdom as it was taken from his father before he fled from capture. At the beginning, from the epic opener, you can already tell that you're in for a treat, and most of all, you could see a lot of Warcraft references in this game. Sure, Black Thorn and Warcraft were both released the same year, but you can see that classic Blizzard charm in this game. I mean, just looking at the enemies, you cannot tell me that those orcs are not from Warcraft. And killing them off with a shotgun, Terminator style, was overall sick. This is probably Blizzard's most hidden gem, and I doubt that there will be any WoW fanboys that would get their ass off WoW and try this forgotten game. It was dark, raw, sick, awesome, and everything that you can expect from a heavy metal influenced game. I don't want to put down this game, but my only problem with Black Thorn is that it's a little too easy compared to the other games in this list. But I sure as hell enjoyed this game, and it's much more better than Nosferatu and Flashback combined. Number 5. Heart of Darkness. Despite my complaints I had in my review on having the most outdated cutscenes, especially for 1998 standards, this is one of the most underrated PS1 games ever. Eric Chahi spent 6 long years to make this game, and the atmosphere and interactive gameplay is what really shines the game. I love the challenge and the action that really is outstanding. Yeah, there are a lot of cheap ways to die in this game that was utter frustrating, but when it comes to how breathtaking the game is, you really start to admire the hard work that has been put in this game. From the design, sound effect, gameplay, the character design, how interactive is your surroundings, and how everything is cinematic were all just groundbreaking. Some of the deaths in this game are unnervingly graphic, while others are somewhat cartoony. You will be blown away at the most surprising moments in this game, from the shadows coming to life, clever puzzles, and so much more that I can't recommend Heart of Darkness even more. So much effort was brought into this game, and it failed commercially that it cost Chahi his own company to go bankrupt. I mean, this game was stunningly beautiful, and it was a darn shame that this game is forgotten. I know it kind of feels like a guilty pleasure to put this game over Black Thorn, but just look at the action and interactive gameplay in this game. This is without a doubt one of the most amazing work I've ever seen in a video game, and it has to be in my number 5 spot. Coming at number 4, Oddworld, Abe's Oddysee. Now this is the game that everybody thinks when they think about cinematic platformers. I mean, Oddworld Abe's Oddysee is probably one of the most detailed games I have ever seen in my life, and still is today. Compared to cinematic platformers in this list, this one plays quite differently. Your job is to rescue Medokans, who are in slavery, and they are endangered because the corporation they work in, Rupture Farms, is about to slaughter every one of them to make them out of products for business purposes. You play as Abe, a warm-hearted Medokan, and his mission is to rescue Medokans in Rupture Farms by sending them to portals for their escape. Of course, you don't have to rescue all of them, but you need a certain number of them to rescue to get a good ending. But the real beauty of this game that separates every cinematic platformer is that he cannot defend himself, which really does bring a lot of puzzling and quick thinking when playing this game. But don't let not defending yourself stop you from playing this game, because you can possess your enemies and use them to get past through puzzles and passageways. I really love the designs in this game. That is simply a work of art. The environments and the character designs just couldn't make Abe's Oddysee feel more of a work of art. I had no choice but to put this game very high on this list if it's not my number 1. But my biggest problem with this game is that the checkpoints are cheap at times, and they are few and far between. And saving Medokans at times is a huge pain in the ass because you can only guide them one at a time. And to top it all down is the save system, which is a major flaw when you cannot overwrite your save point to keep deleting your save file and just to make a new save. Yet, I already talked about this game in my review, so check it out if you missed it. Nevertheless, this is one of the best games in this subgenre. Next at number 3, Limbo. After a whole game generation without a cinematic platformer, there is one that arrived in time. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the downloadable game of 2010, if not the game of 2010. Just when we all thought that cinematic platformers were a thing of the past, this one just came out of nowhere. I first discovered this game when my next door neighbor was having trouble trying to beat this game and asked me to help him, and when I finally got the chance to play it, I was just simply amazed with the gameplay, the puzzles, the designs, and how much imagination and creativity this game had. You play as this nameless character seeking for his missing sister in this very dark and dangerous world that has his well-crafted film noir design style. Even more surprising, the way she dies is both surprising, disturbing, and scary at the same time, which is indeed very fun to play. This is definitely a comeback to the subgenre after a whole generation without one. Limbo just completely blew me away, and I admire how much that this game had a lot of inspiration it borrowed from other cinematic platformers. I know that this game is new, and it's a little unfair that this game is higher than all the other ones below this list that were around when developers were still making cinematic platformers, but I haven't had so much fun with a downloadable game in this generation of gaming that kept me from going to my neighbor's house and play it. I don't own an Xbox 360, but if I had one reason to get one, it has to be because of this game. Despite the fact that there's no killer instinct in Xbox Live Arcade. If you own a 360 and you really want a good downloadable game, I can't recommend this more. Number 2, Another World, or Out of This World. Well, I'm just going to call this game Out of This World. This is without a doubt a true classic, and for a game that was released in 1991, it still is amazing to watch. I mean, even though this game was never easy to begin with, it was worth every frustrating moment because it has a very compelling narrative adventure and some of the most intense action sequences I can come across from a 16-bit game. The reason why Out of This World is so high on this list is because not only it aged well to this day in gaming, but it's one of the most important games in video games, period. I mean, the cutscenes, the gameplay, the interactive world, and the story were all phenomenal, that it was a major leap in gaming. Without Out of This World, I strongly believe that the gaming industry would be very different than what it is today. This game was so good, in fact, that it inspired many game developers like Hideo Kojima, Fumito Ueda to make Metal Gear Solid and Ico. What's most amazingly about Out of This World is that the entire game is made by one man, Eric Chahi, and you have to show appreciation for all the hard work he has made for this game. This game is so well crafted that it is clearly a work of art. This is one of the first games that made environments interactive and some of the most brutal death sequences you could find for a 16-bit game. This game is incredibly unique, heartbreaking beautiful, and some of the most immersive 2D platformers I have ever played. And in later years, the 15th anniversary edition was released, which brought back all the magic that this game had, and it fully satisfied everyone who loved Out of This World. Clearly, all the reasons I just mentioned is the reason why this game is so awesome, and it still stands the test of time of being one of the greatest games of all time. And finally, number 1, Oddworld, Abe's Exodus. When it comes to sequels, I expected to fix every flaw that I can find from the original and make new features that actually work and improve on everything from the original. And Oddworld Abe's Exodus is not only one of those video game sequels, but hands down one of the best sequels I have ever played. From the beginning of this game, when you see Madokin spray tagging walls, 90s style, you already know that this game is promising. And right from the beginning, every tutorial in this game is very helpful, and saving Madokins was less of a pain in the ass because you can command more than one Madokin and use them for certain situations that is very useful and clever. Even more clever, you can possess more than just the sligs. You can possess almost any kind of enemy you can encounter and use them to solve even cleverer puzzles that feels rewarding and enjoyable at the same time. Most of all, this game has one of the most helpful save features I've ever seen on the PS1. This could have made this game too easy, but there is without a doubt some of the most balls to the walls frustrating moments in this game that the save and autosave feature is heavily needed. I can't express how much this game surpasses Abe's Oddysee in every way, despite the fact that Exodus is a little lighthearted and Oddysee was much more darker. Abe's Exodus is more challenging, adventurous, funnier, clever, creative, better designed, and awesome all the way. That my statement when I said Abe's Oddysee is a work of art, this game is a piece of art. Literally, if the sequel is better, then it has to be a piece of art. I can never say that to any other video game, but this one clearly shows what video games can do in becoming an art form, it still manages to be at all playable. Don't play this game without playing Abe's Oddysee first, because you need to see the world in Abe's eyes before jumping through this game like a cheap bastard. But if you play Exodus right after Oddysee, then you would enjoy Abe's Exodus as much as I have, because in my opinion, this game perfected cinematic platformers, period. And it has never gotten better than this. That's why Oddworld, Abe's Exodus, is my favorite cinematic platformer, period. So that's my top 10 cinematic platformers, and I hope that this list got you interested into the subgenre if you haven't already. And if you like what you just saw, give a thumbs up, post a comment, and if you haven't already, please subscribe.